Welcome, Jay Wilson from Melinated Moms. Take it away.
Thanks, Hannah. Hi, everybody. My name is Jay Wilson. I'm the founding president and CEO of Melinated Moms. We do all things motherhood, maternal health, and all of the things that have to do with birth. In today's presentation, we're really going to just talk about how maternal health awareness starts with you and how it also links to advocacy, right? So I thought it was very important for us to learn a little bit more about the macro version of maternal health. And it starts with knowing the different phases of conception. So we often think of pregnancy and parenting just starting at prenatal care. However, there are actually 4 different phases of conception that we all need to consider and be aware of when it comes to supporting someone who is going to have a baby, or even preparing ourselves for parenthood, right? So number 1 is starting with preconception. So having the conversation prior to getting pregnant and learning more about your body, having conversations with your family about family history. Even if you're able to talk to your mom and your dad about what your pregnancy was like when they were pregnant with you. This really helps with developing your view of what it would be like to go through a physical pregnancy, right? For example, for me, I have 2 children. Prior to, I had 2 losses, and having the conversation with my mom and my grandmother about what their pregnancy experiences were like in between my losses, I learned so much more about preeclampsia and reproductive issues and their pregnancy issues that they went through and how they were able to mitigate those things. So whether you've never had a baby or you're planning to have children, or whatever part of your journey you're on, having preconception counseling with the medical provider helps to give you insight on how to prepare your body physically, how to also learn more about different healthcare needs that may change during your pregnancy. Excuse me. And it also helps you to learn more about your health insurance and how that also impacts the way that you're able to obtain care. So preconception is just as important as the other 3 phases, but it's not always talked about. So I want to make sure to put that right in the front. The second one is prenatal, right? So we all know about prenatal care. This is the care that you get during your pregnancy. Typically, a pregnant person will receive prenatal care once a month for the first trimester, going into the second trimester, 2 to 3 times a month, and then in the last trimester, every other week or weekly, depending on the circumstances. But prenatal care is really learning more about how your baby is growing, how your body is also changing in preparation for the baby. This is also a great time to have conversations about how you want to feed the baby. Are you going to breastfeed, chest feed, or use formula? How are you eating foods that are going to enrich the baby's growth? How do you manage weight gain and weight loss, right? Like for me, I had hyperemesis, which is like very severe vomiting and malnutrition during pregnancy. It was just not a good thing for me. But I had to learn how to replace a lot of the calories and things that I lost so that my baby can grow appropriately, but I also can survive, right? But those questions of what do I need to eat when I can't eat, or how do I manage this like very terrible sickness and make sure that my pregnancy progresses, right? These are a part of the questions that you will ask during prenatal care. Going into the next phase, postpartum is my favorite phase because that's when you give birth to the baby. But postpartum care is not just delivery, it's delivery and the care that you and your baby are going to need to receive once they are born, right? So learning how to heal from the actual physical labor, whether you've had a vaginal or natural birth, a C-section, or any other type of intervention, there is still a healing process, right? So knowing about how to care for yourself if you have a surgical wound, how to look for signs of infection, how to also look at Loki, which is your the bleeding that happens after the baby is born. It's not a period, but it is the fresh blood that comes from the placenta detaching and everything else. So it's a part of the body's healing process. What does the blood look like as it changes, or as you get further along in the pregnancy, or sorry, in postpartum, the color of the blood will start to change. When to call your doctor if you notice something different, if there's a smell, if there's mucus, if things change color. Those are things that you want to be aware of during the postpartum period. Also, yeah, sorry, that's not the last point. And then the last one, I'm sorry, is the interconception phase. So interconception also, just like preconception, isn't widely talked about. Interconception is the time period between any subsequent pregnancies. So after you've given birth until you get pregnant again is your interconception period. So this is the time where you may consider different types of birth control. You may have different family planning options with your partner. You may decide to go with a temporary or permanent birth control option. You may be saying, I want to get pregnant right over, immediately after. So knowing how to plan it properly so that your body can heal and so that you also are able to adjust to the changes that your body is currently going through after giving birth is very, very important. Again, all of these phases really feed into how maternal health how maternal health is really received as a birthing person, but also how to tap into different resources to make sure that you are fully taken care of through each phase, right? So in preconception, you may not need the same things that you would during prenatal care, right? But you still want to make sure that you have a great relationship with your GYN. Establish conversations about family planning going into wanting to be a parent, right? How do I change my medication? How do I find the right hospital or birthing center for me? What types of things does my health insurance allow in order for me to have an enhanced experience? What types of things does my health insurance restrict, right? So some health insurances will cover breast pumps and childbirthing classes, but a lot of them may not. So having those conversations prior to getting pregnant are really vital into making sure that you have all of the awareness that you need. All right. So when it comes to the components of maternal health, I like to focus on the 6 dimensions of health and wellness and how it relates to the pregnant person, right? So just as with anything else, when we are taking care of ourselves, it's not a one-dimensional thing, right? It's not just, I physically feel well, so that means I'm well. It's covering all of the bases. So environmental, are you living in a safe space? Is your environment welcoming for you and your baby? Are you preparing for all of those things? Do you have the tools that you need in order to be environmentally well? Mental and cognitive. So that's our mental health. That's the mindset. What types of things need to shift in order for us to prepare for this new person that we don't even know, but we love so very much, right? How do we get the support that we need to go through all of the transitions that pregnancy takes you through, right? Your hormones are all over the place. You're living your life. All these other things can happen and it can really be overwhelming. And it also can put you at risk for postpartum depression and anxiety, right? So we want to make sure that we're cognitively well and we're mentally prepared for what's happening within our bodies and then what's happening on the outside. Social and relationships. So understanding that social wellness is just as important as everything else. So when you're going through pregnancy, you want to make sure that you have the right levels of supportive people around you. So who is the community that actually feeds into who you are, helps you make sure that you're not isolated or feeling alone or have to deal with things by yourself. Our community, right? The PLC and Melinated Moms, we are a social community. So we want to make sure that we're pouring into the moms and families that we support. And when we're not able to, connecting them to the people that they need, right? Financial security, having occupational wellness. Are you a working parent? Are you, depending on your spouse or your partner, are you financially secure? How do you find the means to make sure that you are able to go from being an individual to being a family? All of those things also impact the way that you're able to deal with stress, that you're able to deal with the multiple changes that are going to be happening in your life. And obviously preparing for baby. Physical health, of course. Are you physically well? That is absolutely a huge need. Are you eating well? Are you sleeping well? Are you able to change your diet if things happen, right? Do you have access to clean water and healthy foods? Are you in need of WIC or any other programs that can help supplement those things? We want you to be able to have all of those physical components. And then last but not least is spiritual wellness. So this, I like to be very clear, this isn't about religion or church. This is really just about how you are grounded in whatever your belief system is. If you believe in nothing and you just here on earth, then that's fine. As long as you're grounded and you are connected with yourself, that's totally good, right? But if you want to connect with a church or a synagogue or another religion, or if you want to learn more about spirituality, this really helps to balance out all of those different components of who you are as an individual, and then also how that feeds into your pregnancy and thereafter. How do we start the conversation on improving our health outcomes together? So first is asking the question, never being afraid to ask out loud, where can I find this resource, or how can I find someone to support me in this journey to whatever the solution is, right? So I always use preeclampsia because it was very significant for me. But if I'm a mom who just found out that she has preeclampsia, and I've never heard of it before, I don't know where to even start, I'm going to ask the question to my medical provider, what is preeclampsia? Help me understand how this is going to affect who I am as a person, how I am during this pregnancy, and how it's going to affect my baby, right? But then continue that conversation. Go into the people that you love, talk to your friends, your community, your colleagues. Has anyone ever heard of preeclampsia? What kind of resources currently exist? And then we also are at a great advantage of having this digital space where we can Google everything, right? So literally searching for the answer and typing in the question the way that we would ask it, right? What is preeclampsia? How does preeclampsia impact my pregnancy? Excuse me. Is preeclampsia dangerous? Like these are things that we can ask and utilize that as a resource for us to then go back to our medical providers, go back to our communities, go back to people who may have had limited or no answers, and then utilize that as a space of like teaching both of them. Like you've learned something and then you're also teaching them at the same time. Well, this is what I found. Let's continue the conversation, right? Oh yeah, so I covered it. So number 2, connecting with the community. After you've asked a question and you found these answers, connecting with other people who are going through pregnancies, who are like-minded, who have had these different experiences, and continuing to learn more about how do you utilize that information as an advocacy tool, right? So if I want to learn how to prevent preeclampsia with other moms who look like me or other moms who live in my area, I'm going to find other moms who are currently pregnant. I might go to a hospital, I might go to a birthing center, community center, whoever is throwing things that have to do with maternal health, and say, hey, I want to learn more about what your experiences are as a pregnant person who is also dealing with preeclampsia, right? So extending yourself and becoming the person that they need or they can rely on in terms of being a resource, right? So then number 3, the last one, is find a resource and be a resource. So you found all of these different resources through community connections, through organizations like Melinated Moms and ACNJ, and then also through your clinical partners, right? Your doctor, your nurses, doulas, different people who are all involved in healthcare. And then you've become a resource for other people. So then people will then come to you and say, hey, Jenna, that was really helpful that you told me about this childcare need in the town. And I know after I have this baby, I'm going to need childcare. Help me learn more about how to ask the right questions to see if this daycare is right for me, or to see if they'll understand how to care for a child who has asthma, or, so we have those, we hold those tools in order for us to change the things that we see. It starts with us doing these 3 things: asking the question, connecting with the community, and then finding the resource, and then becoming the resource. So I'm going to turn the question over to you all and say, how are you all utilizing the knowledge that you've gained through PLC and through our community to ask the right questions, to connect with the community, and to find resources and become resources? I know that was a lot.
Do you want me to stop? I'm sorry, should I stop recording for a moment, and that way we can kind of open it up and folks can share?
Oh yeah, sure.
Or I'll
My last
pause the
slide is literally
recording.
just, if you have questions, you can reach me. That's it. That's all the slides I have.
Great. Thanks, Jay. All right, I'm going to stop the recording.
No problem. And I can share the slides also with you, Hannah, so everyone can have them.